What's up guys, my name is Elle and welcome to or back to the Coffee Shop Project. Today we're going to be continuing that interview series that I started a couple of weeks ago back at Apotheos Roastery, continued with Mark Crawford, and now we are on to Ren Doughty from Batdorf and Bronson Coffee Roasters in Atlanta. I'm so excited to talk with him, ask him some questions about brewing methods. Let's jump into it. So the first question I had on my list was that you said that you've been drinking coffee forever, I read in an interview, and like me, your senior year of high school, you really got into it. What did that journey and transition from a coffee drinker to a connoisseur look like for you?
When I was a kid, the only coffee I was ever exposed to was through my grandfather. My parents didn't drink alcohol, didn't smoke cigarettes, didn't swear, and they didn't drink coffee. My mom's father drank, smoked, swore, and drank coffee. And as a kid growing up, drinking coffee was kind of one of those things that grandpa did that we didn't do. My grandpa loved Taster's Choice instant coffee. He would come visit us at our house a couple of times a year, and we would go visit him at his house a couple of times a year. And we had a jar of Taster's Choice coffee crystals. That jar probably lasted for 10 years,
Oh my gosh.
because all he would do is, put a spoonful of it in with some boiling water. I early on associated that smell with my grandfather because that's the only time I was around coffee. Then at different social gatherings, you would get a little cup of coffee in a little white styrofoam cup, and you would put some powdered creamer in there and some sugar so it didn't taste terrible. So I didn't grow up thinking of myself as a coffee drinker. When I was a senior in high school, my favorite history teacher would have some of us over to see different films or listen to different pieces of music on the stereo. And his name is David William Robinson. He went on to found this really cool audiophile journal called Positive Feedback Magazine that's been in existence now since I was in high school. And he loved good coffee. So he started serving coffee at these gatherings. And that's when I first started to really love coffee.
So transitioning from that, obviously you got really into the coffee industry and ended up with Batdorf and Bronson. What does your role as the director of outreach and customer support look like there?
I'm very thrilled that you put the word director in my title, but I'm not a director of anything.
My bad.
My title is just outreach and customer support. And when I joined the company 7 years ago, I realized that most of the people who work for Batdorf and Bronson are natural introverts. They're smart, they're sharp, they're funny, and these are people that you want geeking out over your coffee. You want these people to pay attention to the details, the sourcing and the roasting and the sustainability issues and all that. But introverts don't usually want to say, hey, you got to try this coffee. This coffee is amazing. So when they brought me on, that's my, I'm like, if you opened up extrovert in the dictionary, it probably has that. This is just my natural way of being. And I loved sharing good coffee with people even before I came to Batdorf. But once I tried Batdorf coffee and then also fell in love with the other characteristics of the people in the company, it's just so easy to share this coffee with people. People thank me for it. I can't take any credit for it. I'm a happy employee. I have the fabulous job of sharing this coffee with people, telling them about our company so that hopefully they can fall in love with the company the same way I have.
That's amazing. So like, for lack of better words and totally oversimplifying it, you're like the resident extrovert that helps get the word out.
I am. I totally am. And I don't even mind saying that. And I don't think they would mind me saying it either. Like, I don't think anyone that I work with would raise an eyebrow at any of this that I've said so far. They'd be like, yep. I had worked for a few months and I jokingly told my boss that I wanted to change our motto. I wanted to start saying Batdorf and Bronson Coffee Roasters, quietly not sucking since 1986.
Oh my gosh.
And of course, it's a joke. We don't say that. It's not very professional. But I do love sharing the coffee and telling people about the company. That was a little over 7 years ago now, and it's all been fun. And I'll tell you another thing about this company that I think is telling. I've worked for many different companies in my life. I was in the Marine Corps. I was a deputy sheriff. I've worked corporate jobs. I was a roofer. I used to drive bulldozers down in the holds of tanker ships unloading aluminum ore. I had never worked for a company where I thought that I wanted this company to be the last and only company I ever worked for. I had only worked for Batdorf and Bronson for a few months, and I thought, you know, if they'll have me, I would love to continue doing my best to represent and promote and support this company, you know, the rest of my working years.
And so is that what also kind of drove you? I read on another interview that you deleted your LinkedIn page and everything, and like that's how all in you are to Batdorf.
It was so refreshing. It was so refreshing to delete my LinkedIn page. I know that sounds funny, but before this, I had been with Starbucks for 14 years, and I had started as a barista. Then I became an equipment technician. I became an equipment technician trainer, and then I became a facilities manager. When I left Starbucks, I was in charge of about 100 Starbucks locations as far as the facility went for every Starbucks in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. That is a stressful corporate job. And also somehow I had promoted myself or gotten promoted away from the aspects of coffee that I really loved.
Yeah.
I loved the coffee and being with people, and I somehow got myself into a job where now I was evaluating Excel sheets with, you know, replace and repair budgets and all these different things. I do want to show you one thing.
Okay.
I am very grateful to Starbucks for introducing me to my favorite Italian espresso machine company, La Marzocco.
Okay.
When I became an equipment tech, Starbucks exclusively used La Marzocco manual espresso bars, chiefly Linea Classics.
Okay.
And so when I became an equipment technician, I learned about the repair and maintenance for those machines. And back then, every La Marzocco machine had a rectangular metal emblem on it that said La Marzocco.
Okay.
So I realized one day that it would fit on my forearm.
Oh my gosh.
So I took the actual emblem to a very skilled tattoo artist here in Atlanta.
Well, that's commitment right there.
This is my only tattoo.
Oh my gosh.
And it was his best representation of the actual emblem on the front of the La Marzocco machines.
That's pretty epic. He has like a gradient going and everything.
Yeah, so anyway, I'm a little bit of a fan.
So La Marzocco, everyone that I've talked to on my coffee shop project thus far has always had like a common thread if they have some kind of background with La Marzocco. What do you think makes them special?
I think they have a commitment to excellence and innovation, and they have just been a leader in this industry for a long, long time. It also didn't hurt that they had an early relationship with Howard Schultz and Starbucks so that their machines became, you know, prevalent and ubiquitous throughout the country and also associated with good coffee.
So then like with Starbucks, I didn't realize, because you don't have LinkedIn anymore, I didn't realize that you actually worked for Starbucks, and different coffee connoisseurs that I've read about and talked to, they have very differing opinions on Starbucks as the coffee and the company. What's your take?
My take is that Starbucks floated the boats, all the coffee boats higher. At least they surely did in the beginning. They were an early member of the Specialty Coffee Association of America. They helped many Americans familiarize themselves with the more Italian style or Italian menu of enjoying coffee, and Howard had his vision for the third place. I respect Starbucks a lot for their stand on social issues, and I think they do a great job considering their size with sustainability issues and kind of trying to take care of their farmers. And they're huge. They can't be expected to do what other smaller independent roasters can do, other specialty roasters. I mean, they have, I don't know, 23,000 locations maybe just in the United States.
It's insane, yeah.
And so they, you know, when Batdorf and Bronson gets a special small batch coffee from Rwanda, that's not something that would even ever be available at Starbucks because it wouldn't make any sense for them to buy such a small amount of coffee. But I have a lot to be grateful to them for in my coffee life. I'm still friends with a lot of wonderful people I met during those Starbucks years.
So then I also read that you are passionately pro fair trade and direct trade coffee farming and building those relationships with the farms. What's the coolest interaction or experience you've had with a coffee trader or a farmer?
Our company has several really cool people in it, and I'm not one of them. One of my heroes at our company is a guy named Bob Bank, and Bob travels the world building and maintaining relationships with coffee farmers.
Okay.
Batdorf and Bronson tries to do as much direct trade with farmers as we can. Batdorf was kind enough to send my wife and me to a couple of our coffee farmers in Costa Rica a few years ago. We got to stay at and tour Hacienda La Manita, and we also got to see Afe Orca, which is an organic co-op. A lot of people are excited about organic coffee because it seems like it would be a good idea to be drinking organic coffee, but they don't realize that there is precious little certified organic coffee in the world, partly because the farmers don't always need this. They don't see the need to become certified organic. They're already doing all of those things. And Bob told me once, hey, if I go to a coffee farm and I see birds and butterflies and insects and the birds eating the insects, I know that they're not doing anything that is killing that life off. But we are very careful to take a look at how our farmers are cultivating and growing their crops. The most enjoyable firsthand experience I've had was going to La Manita and picking coffee cherries for the first time. If you'll give me just a second to look away from the screen here. A lot of people don't know that coffee cherries grow on trees, kind of shrub-like trees. And there are usually 2 seeds or coffee beans in a coffee cherry.
So is that like the green coffee is inside the coffee cherry?
Yes, so green coffee is inside the coffee cherry. Green coffee looks kind of like this.
Okay.
Okay. It's green in the sense that it's raw.
Yeah.
More than it's green in the sense that it's the color green. The coffee cherries go through quite a process where they get the pulp removed and then they are dried, and then they will eventually get shipped to a roaster where they will, be roasted and delivered to someplace who's going to brew coffee, and it'll end up in your cup. This is very bad manners. I should have looked this up before.
No, you're fine completely.
Jumped on. So on this trip, it was my very first time seeing coffee cherries on a tree. I was able to pick some beautiful coffee cherries. One thing that a lot of folks don't know is that all coffee cherries, all specialty coffee, is hand-picked.
Really?
So there are no automated coffee picking machines. It's all picked by a human. And a lot of times on a tree, you have some ripe cherries and you have some green cherries. And that's why you have to have a real human being reaching up there and plucking the ripe cherries. The ripe cherries end up looking like this. Can you see those?
Yeah.
Might be a little bit better.
Yes, that's perfect. It's a great image.
So you can see some of the cherries still on the tree, and then some of them are in my basket. So then they have some different processes where they remove the pulp. Often they do it with water baths and tumbling in the water, but sometimes they do it completely dry, which is called natural.
Okay.
And a lot of coffees, when you see natural in the description of the coffee, it means you're going to taste more of the fruit that was in the pulp of that coffee cherry, because it had a chance to dry on there and transfer to the seed versus via osmosis while it was being processed.
So do the different flavor notes have to do with the processing? Like I got some Batdorf and Bronson coffee the other day, and this one has cherry notes in it. Does that have anything to do with how it was washed and everything?
It can. And so coffee, the flavor that ends up in your cup is a factor of several different, contributing pieces of the puzzle. Where the coffee grows on the planet is one of those pieces. It has to do with elevation, soil conditions, rainfall, and the variety of the coffee plant.
Right.
And then how was that coffee roasted? To what degree did the roaster decide to roast that coffee to get the benefit or the result they were looking for from that coffee cherry? And then brewing it correctly makes a very big difference as well. A lot of people don't understand the direct importance of your ground coffee being ground the right size for your brewing method. And you'll have to forgive me. I hope I'm not jumping ahead to some other question, but
no, it actually all goes in beautifully.
When I talk to somebody wanting to share some coffee with them, the first thing I want to know is, do they usually buy their coffee whole bean, or do they have a grinder? And if they say they have a grinder, I want to know if it's a little spinny blade grinder, because the little spinny blade grinders do not do your coffee any favors. And the reason they don't is that you are not trying to get 100% of the flavor out of that coffee bean into your cup. About 80% of that flavor is pleasant, and about 20% of it is bitter and unpleasant. The smaller you grind your coffee, the faster the water brings the flavor out and then the bitterness. So for example, when you're having espresso, that coffee is ground almost as fine as powdered sugar.
Yeah.
But it's only in contact with the water for between 20 and 30 seconds. If you were to have a French press, that coffee is in contact with the water for 4 whole minutes, but it's not bitter because the coffee was ground coarsely. If you tried to make a French press with coffee ground for espresso, it would be a disaster. And when you buy coffee ground at the store, and by the way, I don't like to throw shade on anybody's methods. And you know, we want grocery stores to carry coffee. You know, I want grocery stores to carry Batdorf and Bronson, but I want people to be able to buy that coffee where it's only 2 or 3 weeks old, not 4 or 5 months old, because coffee is a perishable product as far as freshness and the flavor notes go. So back to the grinding, it's very important that you are grinding your coffee for your brewing method. A couple of weeks ago, I was helping set up a new cafe, and I knew what the coffee was supposed to taste like. And we were using a grinder that I wasn't familiar with. I was familiar with the make and model of it, but I didn't know exactly what result we would be getting from a particular grind setting. So I did a little estimating by just grinding a few tablespoons of coffee into the palm of my hand, and just, you know, from experience, guessing what a good drip grind would be. But after we brewed the first pot, I felt like it was a little bit over extracted, meaning we had gotten that flavor out, and then we had also gotten a little bit of the bitterness out that we didn't want. So I had everyone who worked in the cafe there taste the coffee ground the first time. And then I made the grind just half a click coarser. And I honestly think that most of the people watching me thought that this was kind of the emperor's new clothes, that this wasn't going to really have any actual impact or change on the coffee in their cup. Then I brewed a batch of coffee. The brewer was the same, the water was the same, the water temperature was the same, the ratio of water to ground coffee was the same. Everything was the same, except the coffee was ground just a little bit coarser. And then I sampled it. Every single person could tell the difference, that it was better. And most everybody was kind of shocked and flabbergasted that such a small variation in grind size had such a big difference with the coffee in their cup. If you are shopping for a coffee grinder, because most people who say, well, what's the main thing I can do to make better coffee at home? It's funny. I can do interviews and I can do roastery tours, and all of that stuff is very, very fun. But a lot of times we want to know, you know, that's great, but what can we do to make a difference in something that's going to affect our lives and what we do? So if you are not purchasing your coffee whole bean, and if you aren't grinding it right before you brew it, those are the ways that you could make a significant improvement in your morning cup. And you're looking for a grinder called a burr grinder, B-U-R-R. And a burr grinder is a couple of grinding surfaces, either flat or conical. And when you adjust them, you change the distance between the burrs, which changes the size of the grind. When you grind coffee in a little spinny blade grinder, that blade is just going around and cutting whatever it comes in contact with indiscriminately. And there are 3 ways people usually decide when to stop holding the button down to grind the coffee in a blade grinder. Either they are listening to it, right? When they don't hear any like really big crunchy grinding sounds anymore, they stop. Or they might take the top off and look at it and see if it looks about right to them. or they might pinch it between their fingers and see if it feels right. And the problem is with a blade grinder, all three of these measuring methods are ineffective because all three of them are only letting you evaluate the largest pieces of the ground coffee. But anything that is smaller than the pieces, the size that you were shooting for, is going to make your coffee murky and bitter. So if you took a pinch of coffee ground in a spinny blade grinder and you put it on a microscope slide, you would see a huge spectrum of size difference, all the way from the pieces that you hoped all of the grind were cut to, smaller, 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 all the way down to pulverized. In a burr grinder, the coffee is only getting ground one time. It's going through the burrs, then it goes down into a little cup, and the grind size is much more uniform with a burr grinder. So that's why if you're saying, what's the main thing I can do to improve my coffee at home? You should buy a good quality burr grinder. I happen to be partial to a company called Baratza, Baratza. They don't pay me any money. They don't sponsor me. I have a Baratza Vario grinder in my kitchen.
Okay.
If it wasn't plugged in, I can see it from where I'm sitting. I would like pick it up and show it to you. But not only have I used this grinder once or twice a day, every day for more than 10 years, I used it so much that the original grinding burrs that it came with got dull.
Oh my gosh, wow.
And I was able to actually contact the company and buy replacement grinding burrs and replace them so it was like new.
That's insane and awesome of the company too.
Right? I mean, if you, and by the way, again, I'm not throwing shade on any of these other companies because what they manufacture provides, you know, it fills a gap for people that need that particular gap filled. But if you were to go to Target and purchase a coffee grinder that costs, you know, maybe anywhere from $40 to $60, even if it was a burr grinder, that grinder is disposable in the sense that you'll use it for 2 or 3 years and it'll stop working one day and you'll throw it away and you'll go buy another one because no one is going to repair that grinder for you or fix it. But if you buy a Baratza grinder, you're going to spend more money up front, but it's a piece of equipment that will last you many, many years. A friend of mine owns a leather goods company and his motto is a Spanish proverb, buy the best, cry once. And I like that because I'm not a rich person, but with certain things in my life, I will spend a little bit more money, even if it's a little bit painful. And that's the crying once part. But then every time you use that piece of gear or that equipment, you're thrilled with it, you know, for its life.
Right now, I have a Rebel espresso machine, and I actually don't know what kind of grinder is in it. You might know, but I definitely want to upgrade. And after hearing that, that is definitely going to be something that I will be looking for, especially with Black Friday right around the corner.
I was admiring that machine from a distance. I'm not sure if it automatically adjusts its own grind based on what you ask of it, but I know that a lot of people have those machines and love them.
Yeah, it has, so there's like a little thing on the left side. I would show you, my camera's like mounted in place, so I can't move it. But it has a little thing and you manually adjust it. It goes 1 to 16. And so I use it on Corsair when I'm making like cold brew. And then if I need a nice espresso shot, I can have it finer. So it has a little bit of a range. But when I went to buy my Batdorf and Bronson coffee, I used the grinder at the Whole Foods because I'm like, this is going to be much better. And I knew that you were big about the grind size. So can I show you how I ground it? And then you can tell me if I got it right. So this is, I had it ground for a pour over. I was planning to use it in a Chemex video that I'm actually going to film right after this. But here's my coffee. I don't know if you can like tell from the screen. Can you look maybe?
Oh, that looks great. Look at that. I've got a little pinch between my fingers right here. It looks pretty good, but I can't tell from here, but it looks good.
We can hope for the best, right? Yeah, but when I did it with mine, and mine must not be calibrated properly, because whenever I do it for like the same setting, it just isn't quite right, which goes back to the fact with brewing that I don't need the best tools in regards to like pour overs. It's that grinder that I need to upgrade.
One of the ironic things to me about this brewing equipment conversation is, you know, it might cost you $140 to get a good entry-level Baratza Encore grinder, but some of the very best coffee you can make you can make on a $30 Bodum French press. When I fell in love with the French press in about 1995, I didn't even have any other brewing method in my home after that for 20 years.
Wow.
Because I just liked a French press so much. To me, if you had the time to make coffee, that was the coffee to make.
Right.
A couple of years ago, we were sponsoring coffee at a magazine show home where the proceeds of this home tour went to Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. And so we donated to them or loaned to them a Bonavita 8-cup drip coffee brewer.
Okay.
Bonavita is, I'm sure everyone watching this knows Bonavita, but if they don't, it's Bonavita, Bonavita. And I happen to have family coming in from out of town right after I got this brewer back from the show house.
Okay.
So I brought it to my house. And then while company was here, I was making coffee in my French press, but I was also making coffee on this Bonavita 8-cup brewer. My Vario grinder is adjustable, so I can adjust it to grind for a French press when I'm doing that, or grind for a drip brewer when I'm doing that. And this Bonavita drip brewer makes a fabulous cup of coffee. So the biggest factor in your brewing is the fundamentals. You want to have good tasting water. You want to have high quality coffee. You want to have the coffee ground to the right size for your brewing method. You want the correct ratio of water to coffee. I've got a friend, and whenever I'm going to send him some coffee, he'll always say, "Send me the strong coffee." And I know what he means. He means he likes a darker roast. But the strength of your coffee is not a function of the darkness of your roast. If we're being specific, it's a function of the ratio of how much ground coffee are you using to how much water. You could have a very, very light roasted coffee and still make it very strong if you are putting a lot of ground coffee in with your water, proportionally. And another important factor is that your water needs to be the right temperature for the brewing method. And that's probably one area where Bonavita brewers shine. I know that you can buy different drip coffee makers, again, for $30 or $40.
Yeah.
But I don't have any confidence that they are actually heating the water to 200 degrees by the time it's coming down onto the ground coffee in the filter. I know that Bonavita is putting extra care into making sure the water is the correct temperature. And they also have a brew head that's bigger than you would find in a cheaper brewer, so that the coffee grounds are getting water on them spread out, not just one little stream of water going into the middle.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Coffee Shop Project at Home. If you enjoyed this style of video that I've been doing, where I interview someone in the industry and then apply what they're teaching me through different brewing methods and products, let me know in a comment, because I've been loving making them. Special thanks to Ren for being here. His Instagram and links to everything he talked about will be in the description below. And while you are there, I would love if you would consider subscribing, and I will see you somewhere else on the internet. Bye guys.